It's deals day. It's deals day in the NFL. Deals are flying. We're all making deals here. And this is the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Pride of Deals. PrideOfDetroit.com. Pride of Detroit on Twitter. Midweek mini podcast coming to you right now as we sit here and behold the deals that are flying across the NFL and with the Detroit Lions. We recorded our main POD cast here on Monday. You guys got it on the feeds on Tuesday. However, we want to get back in the lab here because quite a bit has happened in the 24 hours since. So we're going to do a quick mini pod. I am Christopher Fett, as always, your adequate host at Christopher Fett on Twitter. I forgot my handle for a second there. Happens. That is what adequate means. Jeremy Reisman, the Fearless Leader at Detroit Online, making deals.
Yeah, I mean, I thought today was just going to be franchise tag deadline day, and turned out to be a lot more than that.
No. I have no clue what's going to happen tomorrow. I hopefully won't have to be back in the lab tomorrow, but we'll see. Third man, Ryan Matthews, the Rock God at Ryan_POD is here when he's not bothering us with his new catchphrase.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I went to bed around noon, so I don't know why we're doing a whole podcast about Josh Reynolds.
That's it. Yeah, nothing else but Josh Reynolds.
Nothing else happened.
We got some more of
what happened.
Oh boy, do we have something for you.
We're gonna break news to you in the second segment.
I know. We are gonna start with Josh Reynolds and some other news here. This is a slow cook podcast. This is a slow build up because we want everyone to be here for when it cascades the end. We do start with Josh Reynolds. He is re-signed by the Detroit Lions. Reports, we don't know the real value of the contract yet. Reports, though, Jeremy, 2 years, up to $12 million.
Yep.
Which would put him in line to, shore up the wide receiver room. I think we all kind of hoped and expected him to be back. He had a great season with the Lions when he was, in and acclimated. And he's got good chemistry with Jared Goff. And I think moving forward, him and Amon-Ra, that's the start of your new wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of us expected something like this to happen, although the talk about it had kind of really died down. I mean, we didn't even mention his name in our free agency podcast, just because I think we all started to get really hype about the idea of the Lions being super active in free agency, trying to grab one of the big free agents that might be available at wide receiver, because the Lions basically went out and said, like, we're going to look for an outside receiver. We're going to be aggressive. We want these tall, big guys. And I think we just kind of forgot about Josh Reynolds for a little bit here, and the Lions go out a week before free agency opens and signs him to what looks like a modest deal. I'm not going to say it's an overpay. I'm not going to say it's an underpay because we don't know the structure of it yet. And by the sound of up to $12 million, it sounds like there's going to be some incentives in there. There's going to be some, bonuses that are either likely to be earned or not likely to be earned. But we don't know any of that specifics yet. But it's rewarding a player that was happy to be here last year. It's nice to see, you think when a guy asks for his release like Josh Reynolds did last year, that he's looking for a place not only where he can succeed, but where he can find a team succeed. And not that, the Chargers were a team that was succeeding. They're fine. But not Chargers, Titans, right? Titans. But, he gets a 7-game audition to hit free agency, and he does well. And the Lions must have been doing something well too, right? Because he decided to come back, and despite putting on a pretty good show at the end of that season, he could have said, yeah, no, let me test free agency. Let me see what I can get. And he's like, no, I liked it here. I like my month and a half here. I like my 2 months here. Let's see what we can do here in Detroit. And I want to be a part of it. So I think that part of the deal is kind of like, hey, Lions are doing something good here where they're getting a decent player. They're getting decent production out of him, and then he wants to stick around despite the fact that he very well could have hit free agency and maybe gotten a better deal.
Yeah, I think Josh Reynolds also looks at the situation in Detroit and says, there's still an awful lot of opportunity here.
True.
There's still a lot of chance for me to do something because at this point, I mean, it's just a 2-year deal.
Yep.
It's just worth up to $12 million. So it's clearly incentive based. And I think with Reynolds, that's what he's looking for. I think like he's looking for like that next big contract. And you know, for however many wide receivers the Lions go out and get during this offseason, whether it's through the draft or it's through free agency, you'd have to imagine that it's kind of looking like Josh Reynolds is going to be in line to potentially be a starter on day one. So, I mean, hard to beat that opportunity, incentive-based contract, likely.
Good
Looks like
position to start. Yeah.
Looks like he's going to have a chance to put up more numbers.
It's a good place to be if you're Josh Reynolds. So I guess that kind of leads into the next question is now with the Lions, I don't know if Josh Reynolds we are going to call him the number one, but clearly he's going to be starting. So how much of a need is wide receiver right now as we look towards, I think it's still a need as we look towards the draft, but I think Jeremy, Ryan, as we look towards free agency, I don't know if this really signals the Lions are done adding wide receivers, but it definitely makes the palette a little more. You've had a very nice, a very filling appetizer. So I don't know if you're going to go heavy on the main course here. If you might turn your Gorman gaze elsewhere. I don't think it's going to stay on wide receiver, especially given that what we've talked about on the last podcast too. Chris Godwin was tagged, Devontae Adams was tagged, Mike Williams re-signed with the Chargers. Just like we talked about yesterday, that market for wide receivers has dried up, like we thought, much quicker than what was anticipated just a month ago. And so a lot of the big pieces are off the board, which means other teams are probably going to be overpaying for that second order of receiver. And I don't think the Lions should be in the market, will be or should be in the market to overpay for second order when they have, some good consistent pieces with Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you are looking towards this wide receiver class in the draft.
Yeah, I still think they lack a true number one. But the question is, I mean, you laid it out there nicely. Like, do they do it in free agency where it's going to cost
no true
them?
number one available in free agency now.
It's like Allen Robinson, and that's it. Like, I don't know if anyone views DJ Chark as a number one. I don't know what else is out there, Ryan, that would even be
Christian
considered.
Kirk.
Christian
maybe.
Kirk, probably not a number one though. Like I almost view Christian Kirk and Josh Reynolds in the same kind of category. Christian Kirk's probably a little bit better, but I feel like Allen Robinson, it's kind of an eggs in one basket situation in free agency. If the Lions are truly looking to add a number one in free agency, I think they have to do it in a draft at this point. Unless they're I mean, and let's go back to Mike Williams. He got 3 years, $60 million. Mike Williams got $20 million a year. So what's Allen Robinson going to get? I think Allen Robinson is a better player than
we're going to come back to this point a little later in the podcast. But as with all things in the NFL, line goes up. Everyone starts to get paid more because nobody is taking less than the guy before them. And if Mike Williams is your floor, then I can't even begin to imagine how much A-Rob is going to cost you.
Yeah. And chat brings up Amari Cooper too, which given that the Cowboys tagged that tight end, it does seem like Amari Cooper is probably going to get
I didn't see, like, if he hasn't been tagged today on Tuesday, I don't think
Cooper has not been tagged.
I'm saying he was not tagged. I'm saying Cooper wasn't tagged. Yes.
So they're paying a tight end, I can't remember his name, a lot
Dalton
more Schultz, that's right. A lot more than he's worth, which means they're not going to have enough money to handle Amari Cooper. So Amari Cooper's almost certainly going to hit free agency when/if maybe they trade him, but so that's I think you got two number ones on the market. It's going to cost you over $20 million a year. You just spent, I don't know, let's say $5-6 million on Josh Reynolds.
$6 million average, up to $6 million average.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't really know the terms there, but I don't know. You look at this draft class and you're like, looks pretty good. The Lions are kind of in a weird position though, where you're too early to take one at 2. You're too late to get the first tier of them at 32. So I don't know if the Lions can get a number one receiver at 32. Christian Watson is a guy that is jumping up boards, but is he a true number one? Is he even going to be there at 32? I don't know. But to me, I think this lessens maybe the chance that they go after a number one free agent. At wide receiver, it doesn't make it 0. I don't think it makes the chance 0 though. I think there is a chance that they go aggressive for whether it's Amari Cooper or Allen Robinson, but I think those are kind of your only two choices that really make any sense.
Yeah, I think with the DJ Shark discourse, I think what's happening there is it's a lot of projection, right? I mean, it's a guy who's only had 1,000-yard season. He is relatively young, but he's had some problems with injuries and staying healthy. Last season and only playing 4 games. Maybe the Lions do something with that where it costs a little bit less than A-Rob would get, or it costs less obviously than what maybe Mike Williams got. But there's also the opportunity that, I don't know, that with what the New York Giants did last year with Kenny Galladay, maybe some other team comes out swinging and they're super desperate. Who knows? But
we saw how that worked out for the Giants too.
Yeah, right. Well, with the Cowboys and Amari Cooper, the thing is that his base salary becomes guaranteed on the 5th day of the new league year, and that's March 16th. So like they're either going to trade him in a hurry or they're going to cut him in a hurry. Yeah. So, right. it's going to be happening sooner rather than later. So I'm still like, if the dollar signs are right, like Amari Cooper is still a guy that definitely like piques my interest.
I'm like, are the Lions in the position though to make a big splashy move like that?
For Amari Cooper, yeah. I mean, is Amari Cooper also at this point in his career either also want to kind of come to Detroit when he's probably going to look for something to solidify the amount of money, but also B, like work on his, I hate to say legacy. He's too young for that, but you know what I mean? Like these guys after their career, like rings do matter as far as what they are for and playoff wins and Pro Bowl appearances and all the rest. It does matter for their post game learning. I don't know if the Lions right now are in that position to really offer that. That's always been the problem for the Lions, but I mean, it's not exactly they're in a place where they can tell Amari Cooper, come here, we'll start immediately going to the playoffs.
The one small advantage to getting Amari Cooper over anybody else is that if he's cut by the Cowboys, he no longer factors into compensatory pick formulas. So he can also, like, he doesn't have to wait. There's a tampering period with him. As soon as he's cut, he can talk with anybody.
Right. So
he can talk with anybody. He if the Lions sign him to a big contract, it doesn't like offset if someone else on the Lions, if Tracy Walker goes and signs somewhere else. Well, the Lions get that compensatory pick. It's not offset by anything that they get from Amari Cooper.
Let's talk about some other positions now, and this is kind of where we look beyond the Lions a little bit before we take our first break. The Jaguars have franchise tagged their left tackle Cam Robinson.
Yeah.
I think this has sent some tremors down the way. I've never really bought into this idea that the first pick overall was going to go to Evan Neal. It seemed like an outside possibility given where it was going. Although granted, this is a weird damn draft, but Ryan, does this really change the Jaguars' outlook? Because now I know there's quite a few people who are saying Aidan Hutchinson now the favorite to go number one, and the fact that they just franchise tagged a left tackle means that getting they still need to improve the line down in Jacksonville, but that's kind of probably reduces chances that they might take Evan Neal.
I think so. I think that this definitely puts Aidan Hutchinson on the board at number one, or potentially. I mean, that's solidifying what was a need is no longer a need now. They have a left tackle. They have Cam Robinson. I think that Aidan Hutchinson, even on DraftKings, I think that he's now the clear favorite to be the number one pick, and Evan Neal's odds went down significantly. So I think that this is probably the biggest news for Lions fans today. Like the Jaguars franchise tagging Cam Robinson really changes, I think, the dynamic of the draft, because now the Jaguars, I think, could go in a multitude of directions. They could still go offensive tackle. They could still go Cam Robinson. They could still go Ekwonu. They could still solidify that spot because Cam Robinson is just a franchise tag, right? It's just a year.
Yeah.
But by the same token, I think they're justified taking a pass rusher too.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because the Jaguars they are obsessed with drafting offensive tackles in the past 5 years. They took one in 2017 draft in the second round. They took one in 2018 draft in the fourth round. They took one in 2019 in the second round. They took one in 2021 last year in the second round.
They love doing this, man.
And here's the thing. They're all not very good. Like, I know Cam Johnson has been franchise tagged now 2 years in a row, but he's not that good. And this could be just them like shoring up in case something happens, in case they're not 100% committed to one of these tackles, in case, I mean, it does kind of seem like, I mean, they're the number one pick, right? So if they like one of those guys, maybe you don't make this move, but it's also just kind of a, you know, maybe they put the number one pick up for grabs, and maybe someone else jumps in and grabs a tackle. I'm not.
I mean, we talked about this with number 2. No, if no one's going to trade for number 2 with the Lions, nobody's going to trade for number 1.
It just does seem like a curious move when everyone is mocking an offensive tackle to the Jaguars, and they suddenly tag their left tackle, and it's just like, oh, well, maybe they're okay with Cam Johnson. I mean, the other point is like
Robinson.
So yeah, sorry, Cam Robinson.
I mean, the other point too is like they could just do what the Lions did, where it's like, okay, the Lions had Taylor Decker,
right?
You get Penei Sewell, and then you can figure it out later and move one of them to right.
That's what I was gonna say. The right tackle, Jawan Taylor's entering the final year of his career. He's not playing particularly well, but then you go back to the guy that they drafted last year.
Contract.
What's that?
His career or his contract?
We'll see. It could be either, but. They drafted Walker Little last year in the second round, and he was just kind of a fill-in. He was their backup left tackle, started a few games while their starter was out. So you have to imagine he's going to make a play for a starting position. But I don't know how you can look at, like, I feel like Lions fans are trying to finagle their way into saying, maybe the Jaguars still take Evan Neal. I do think this impacts the draft a lot. I do think an edge player is now the odds-on favorite. I mean, Aidan Hutchinson is literally the odds-on favorite. But the one thing I wanted to add that's funny is like there's so much debate amongst Detroit about who they would take at number 2 if Evan Neal goes number 1. There doesn't seem to be any debate if the Jaguars aren't going Evan Neal, they're going Aidan Hutchinson. Like they're not debating.
They're
Kyle
not
Hamilton.
going Thibodeau. Yeah,
they're not debating Kayvon Thibodeau. They're not talking about Trayvon Walker. It's all just Aidan Hutchinson's gonna go. Okay, well now the Lions have a decision.
That's a great point, kind of to put that in perspective. That it's like if Aidan Hutchinson's unquestionable number 1, if it's not Evan Neal, like I don't know if that's just the stock of Hutchinson being way up, or like I don't know, like because I'm still not completely sold off. I'm still not stock off on Kayvon Thibodeau either, but It's funny that Ryan says that this is the biggest thing that the Lions fans are wondering about today on Cam Robinson, though. And I've been stuck on that for a few minutes. So
in regards to their own football team, yes. But the other thing about Aidan Hutchinson, though, is that I think a lot of people just de facto mocked him to the Lions too. If he's not going number 1, I think a lot of people do the same thing with Aidan Hutchinson at number 2 to the Lions.
So
right.
Before I know you're trying to transition into the bigger news, but if you want to give one word answers, if Hutchinson goes 1, who's your pick at 2?
Willis.
Yeah, yours doesn't change at all.
Here we go. I think it's Hamilton. I mean, I feel like I'm going to turn into the Hamilton guy, right? I should not say that out of context. Kyle Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Hamilton gang will grow significantly if that happens.
Ham gang.
I feel like Thibodeau, for whatever reason, is just like falling off in people's minds. I think
I
my pick
don't
is still Thibodeau. Like 3 months ago, this guy was the consensus number 1 pick in the draft. Like we were all maybe not
prospect fatigue, man.
Yeah,
it happens. Yeah.